August 1914. Across Europe, young men climbed onto trains. Flowers were tucked into the barrels of their rifles. Songs were on their lips. They promised their families, "We'll be home by Christmas." None of them knew that Christmas was nearly 1,500 days away. None of them knew this war would eventually take the lives of more than 90 million people worldwide. And none of them could imagine what was waiting just a few miles ahead. The first month of war. The first month of the war was brutal. Thousands were already dead. But Germany had a plan. A bold plan. A plan that almost worked. When it failed, both sides would do something that changed warfare forever. Germany's greatest fear. For years, German military planners feared one nightmare above all. A war on two fronts. France in the west, Russia in the east. Fighting both at the same time would crush Germany like a nut in a vice. So the chief of the German General Staff, Alfred von Schlieffen, created a solution. A daring solution. History would call it the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan. The idea was simple. France had heavily fortified its border with Germany. A direct attack would be suicide. So instead, German forces would invade neutral Belgium, sweep through its flat terrain, and then attack France from behind. Capture Paris in 6 weeks. Knock France out of the war. Then turn the full might of the German army east to deal with slow-mobilizing Russia. It depended on speed. Everything had to run like clockwork. But there was a problem. Schlieffen died in 1913. His successor, Helmuth von Moltke the Younger, thought the plan was too risky. So he changed it. Those changes would prove disastrous. The invasion begins. On August 2, 1914, German troops marched into Luxembourg without resistance. 2 days later, they crossed into Belgium. The gamble had begun. Germany expected Belgium to surrender quickly. But Belgium had other ideas. Around the city of Liège, a ring of forts stood ready. And the Belgians intended to fight. The fall of Belgium. The Siege of Liège lasted from August 5 to August 16. German infantry launched direct assaults. They were driven back with heavy losses. Desperate, the Germans brought in their super-heavy siege guns, massive 420mm howitzers. Shells weighing nearly a ton slammed into the forts. One by one, they collapsed into rubble. By August 20, Brussels had fallen. Belgium was largely occupied. But something terrible was happening behind the front lines. The rape of Belgium. German soldiers feared guerrilla fighters, known as Franc-tireurs. In response, they began brutal reprisals against civilians. Villages were burned. Hostages were executed. Entire towns were destroyed. At the University of Leuven Library, priceless medieval manuscripts were reduced to ashes. Nearly 6,000 Belgian civilians were killed. The world was horrified. Newspapers called it the Rape of Belgium. The story spread across Britain, America, and the wider world, fueling outrage and recruitment. France's fatal plan. While Germany advanced through Belgium, France launched its own strategy. It was called Plan XVII. Led by Joseph Joffre, the plan relied on one belief. Attack, always attack. French troops marched into Alsace-Lorraine, wearing bright blue coats and red trousers. Perfect targets. German machine guns tore them apart. Within 2 weeks, French casualties exceeded 300,000. It was slaughter. The British enter the war. Further north, the small but professional British Expeditionary Force entered the fight. Just 80,000 soldiers. But they were among the best trained troops in the world. At the Battle of Mons, they stunned German forces. British riflemen fired so quickly with their Lee-Enfield rifles that Germans thought they were facing machine guns. But the British were vastly outnumbered. They began a long retreat toward Paris. Paris in danger. By early September, the German First Army under Alexander von Kluck was just 40 miles from Paris. German officers could see the Eiffel Tower through field glasses. France was on the verge of collapse. But then something unexpected happened. The gap. Von Kluck turned southeast instead of circling west of Paris. In doing so, he exposed his flank. Even worse, a 30-mile gap opened between his army and the German Second Army. French commanders saw their chance. The taxis of the Marne. Paris's military governor, Joseph Gallieni, made a desperate decision. He commandeered the city's taxis. About 600 Renault taxis carried 6,000 French soldiers to the front lines. It was the first large-scale use of motorized transport in war. They became legendary as the taxis of the Marne. The Battle of the Marne. From September 6–12, 1914, the First Battle of the Marne raged across a 100-mile front. French and British forces attacked the exposed German flank. German command began to panic. Reports suggested their armies were in danger of encirclement. Under pressure, Moltke ordered a retreat. German forces withdrew north to the Aisne River. There they began digging trenches. A war that would not end. The Battle of the Marne saved Paris. It shattered Germany's plan for a quick victory. But the cost was staggering. 250,000 French casualties. 12,000 British casualties. Similar German losses. And the war was just beginning. The birth of trench warfare. By winter 1914, both sides had dug deep trenches. From the North Sea to the Swiss border, two massive armies faced each other. Between them lay a wasteland. Soldiers called it no man's land. The Christmas truce. Then something extraordinary happened. On Christmas truce, British and German soldiers climbed out of their trenches. They met in no man's land. They exchanged gifts. Cigarettes, food, buttons. They even played football. For a moment, the enemies remembered they were human. But the next day, the shooting began again. What was coming? In the years ahead, the Western Front would see horrors the world had never imagined. Poison gas, flamethrowers, tanks, dogfights in the sky, and battles where hundreds of thousands would die for a few hundred yards of mud. Next episode, 1915. The year of desperate offensives. The first poison gas at Second Battle of Ypres. And the Allied attempt to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war at Gallipoli campaign. Because history is not just dates and battles. It is the story of people, caught in events far beyond their control. And it is a story the world must never forget.